you might ask yourself why an association like the Senior Executives Association cares about this issue. And the reason we care is that we believe that AI and the associated technologies are the key to modernizing government as we know it. It will be a forcing function that requires the federal government to become smarter, better, and more able to deliver mission to the American taxpayer. Now, having said that, this is an emergent area that very few people in the federal government, I believe, have an inkling about how it will impact their workplace and their workforces. And senior executives who head up the big programs in the federal government are going to be the ones who have to implement all of these massive shifts in the way that we do business, the way that we manage our workforce, and that the way we, deliver value to the American taxpayer. So I'm pleased to introduce today's panelists. The first is Dr. David Bray, who's the Executive Director of People-Centered Internet Coalition and a Senior Fellow for the Institute for Human-Machine Cognition. The second is Dr. Carol, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name. So when you introduce yourself, please, give it to us. Who is the Assistant Inspector General and Chief Data Officer at the Department of Health and Human Services, the Office of Inspector General, and Dr. Anthony Scrifcagnano, the Senior Vice President and Chief Data Scientist for Dun & Bradstreet. So welcome the three of you. Please say hello.
Greetings all.
Hello, thank you.
Greetings. So Carol, how do you pronounce your last name?
You got Bray right.
Yeah, right. My nickname is B+14, but it's Brzmakowicz.
Brzmakowicz. Okay.
Excellent. And I believe, I feel kind of left out. I didn't do a complicated last name. I have to fix that.
I'm only S+11. I needed artificial intelligence to puzzle that one out. So the first question I'd like for the panelists to chew over is, what are the really big questions confronting open, pluralistic societies in our AI future? And David, if you would start off on that.
Sure. Well, one, really glad to be here with both Carol and Anthony and have this be an interactive conversation amongst us. I think historians 20 to 30 years from now will probably conclude that there were two trends in terms of technology that were creating massive ripple effects in societies. The first being the internet, the second being the third wave of artificial intelligence, because this really has been something that's been building since the 1950s. The first wave of artificial intelligence were developing computers that could do really good at playing rule-based games and situations. Then in the 80s, we saw them being more sort of towards expert systems and trying to do tasks as good, if not better than experts. And now we're seeing the rise of what's called deep learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence in which you use what's called artificial neural networks to try and inductively create neural networks that are able to answer questions as good, if not better than humans at terms of making sense of the data around them. And we have to do this because what's happening is the amount of data on the planet is growing exponentially. There's right now an estimated about 33 zettabytes of data. That's 1 billion terabytes of data. And by 2025, the estimates are 175 zettabytes, 175 billion terabytes of data on the planet. So in just 6 years, we're going from less than about 35 zettabytes to 175. To put that in sort of a scale of context, that's more than 4 times ever the conversations we've ever had as a human species, is the amount of data we'll have on the planet. And so we're having to come up with new ways of making sense of this data. And why this matters for governments, particularly those that are societies that are pluralistic in nature like the United States, is we have 3 doors in front of us. Door number 1 is this rise of data, the industrial Internet of Things, small satellites. Could be they empower surveillance states, and hopefully that's not the door we pick for open societies. Door number 2 is the door in which it is more of a surveillance economy. So it's a slight pivot in that you're creating value by mining data. Whether or not that's actually providing benefit to communities and individuals is unclear, but that's a path in which the data is being used for market-based mechanisms that may not actually uplift communities. And then door number 3 that I hope we think about is how do we make sense of this data that's surrounding us, this instrumenting of the planet with the industrial Internet of Things, again, small satellites, and try to think about a way that gives people a locus of choice and free will in the midst of everything that's happening.